I'm Michael Harrington in Washington. Israel says it will send a delegation to Qatar tomorrow, quote, in an effort to advance the negotiations around the ceasefire in Gaza. Hamas reported positive signals in talks with Egypt and Qatari mediators on starting negotiations on the truce's delayed second phase. President Trump is softening his push to end daylight saving time, which, by the way, you should be on now if you're in most of the country. White House correspondent Greg Clugston has more.
Late last year, after winning the election, Donald Trump described daylight saving time as inconvenient and very costly, and he said Republicans would be working to eliminate the time shift. But last week, he backed off a bit and sounded less enthusiastic about making a change. He told reporters that daylight saving time is a 50-50 issue, and that when something's a 50-50 issue, it's hard to get excited about it. In the U.S. today, every state except Hawaii and Arizona observes daylight saving time. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Colombian Defense Minister Pedro Sanchez says 29 law enforcement officers recently kidnapped in the country's southwest have been freed.
The 28 police officers and one soldier were captured during a failed operation against groups fighting over control of cocaine production in Cauca region. They were held by local residents in a communal area as negotiations were carried out. The Colombian government accused the rebels of intimidating the community and forcing them to fight the security forces. Cauca borders the Pacific Ocean and is a major drug trafficking route.
BBC correspondent Leonardo Roca. A war monitoring group says the death toll from 2 days of clashes between Syrian security forces and loyalists of ousted President Bashar Assad and revenge killings that followed has risen to more than 1,000. This is SRN News.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-525-7718, 800-525-7718, 800-525-7718.
As an independent registered investment advisor, Simple Path has the freedom to offer unbiased advice without the potential conflicts of large broker-dealers. Visit SimplePathRetirement.com.
Just when you thought your smartphone couldn't get any smarter, now you can add the AM860 app with local news, national headlines, and commentary. The answer is smart. Adding the AM860 app to your smartphone is genius. Get it now at the Apple App Store and Google Play.
For today, partly sunny, breezy, and pleasant with a high of 79. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm, mainly later, low 68. Tomorrow, a couple of morning showers and a thunderstorm, otherwise breezy with clouds yielding to some sun with a high of 72. Get your weather news when and how you want it wherever you are. Download our free app or visit AccuWeather.com. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Caitlin Lawrence for AM 860, The Answer.
The following program is sponsored by Bay Area Medical Can Care Clinic.
Go, Doc.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Billy, Radio MD. How you guys doing this morning?
What's doing fine. Kid? How are you doing this morning?
I'm feeling pretty good. I can't complain. It's been an interesting week and a lot going on. I think that I'd like to talk about dementia for a minute. I've got a brain sitting behind me.
Okay.
Watching on YouTube or Facebook. I don't even know if I'm coming through on Facebook. I keep seeing your name on my Facebook page, Ken.
Well, we know you're on YouTube, so.
Well, somewhere. Anyway.
You have an orange brain behind you.
Yes, it's orange, and the limbic system is that part of the brain that has to do with emotions and memory, and it's a fascinating area. The purple area is called the hippocampus. As you know from your study of Greek, hippo means horse.
Of course.
And so this looks like a horse. It actually looks like a seahorse when you dissect it out of the brain. So that's why they named it that. And then the cingulate gyrus is the green part, and these are all deep inside the brain, right underneath the cerebrum, which is the most advanced part of the brain. That's the part that does our thinking and motor functions and all that. And there's different parts of this thing. The cingulate gyrus, the hippocampus, the amygdaloid body, and all of these things have to do with memories and emotions. And you say, well, what does that mean? Well, you don't really have a lot of emotional response to conscious thought. So, or to unconscious thought. You just kind of go along with it. So, you're reading a book and you're taking in knowledge, but if you come to something that's emotional, then that goes through the hippocampus and through the limbic system, where you actually process that in a different way than the higher level brain. So your memories are then stored there as well, and the idea of deja vu, you know what that is?
Oh, sure, I have it all the time.
Yeah, well, actually, that you don't really have premonitions or precognition. What you have is a time difference between your frontal, your cerebrum, and your limbic system, because your cerebrum is on a 24-hour schedule, and some parts of it are on a lunar schedule, but for the most part, we're on a solar schedule. And that's our conscious brain. And then our limbic system is not on that time frame. So you may think that you have seen or heard this before, when actually it's coming in to your limbic system, and the limbic system is processing it rapidly and kicking it back out and making you think that this has happened before. Well, it hasn't. It's just a trick that your brain plays on you, because the two are on different time frames, and they process information a little bit differently. And of course, your memories, as you know, until you start becoming demented, are recalled by various triggers. So emotions will trigger memories. So, you're looking at pictures of the family with your parents or your kids, and you see something that reminds you of Christmas in 1985, and you get a little teary-eyed, or you're happy, or whatever. Those are limbic system phenomena, and those are also tied more closely to autonomic functions like sleep and hunger and sweating and sexual desire, and all these things are really not conscious phenomena. They occur, and then our big frontal brain, our cerebrum, processes them once they come into its purview. So it's an interesting back and forth between these two parts of the brain, which evolved differently in humans, and probably in other animals too.
So you were going to talk about dementia. How does this all affect dementia?
Yeah, and dementia is fascinating. Now, the four major types of dementia are Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, dementia with Lewy bodies, which crosses over with Parkinson's disease, like the president has, or President Biden, not President Trump, and then less common dementias like Jacob Creutzfeldt disease, where the cannibals in New Zealand and in the Pacifica would eat the brains of their enemies, and they would pass a slow virus to each other that way, and it would cause a neurodegenerative, which means that the neurons in the brain and in the spinal cord break down from this slow virus. Similar to AIDS, it's passed cell to cell. It doesn't get out of the cell. It's not a virus that forces the cell to make a whole bunch of baby viruses and then blows up. It gets into the cell and gradually kills it. So these are different types of dementia, and the classic Alzheimer's disease is the neurofibrillary tangles and the amyloid plaques. Amyloid is a type of protein that we have in our system, and it can become pathologic if it starts to deposit, if there's too much of it, or if there's an abnormal handling of it. So we know that, like in some chronic diseases, you can deposit amyloid in your heart and in your kidneys and to a whole number of other parts of the body. And what it does is it actually continues to destroy the heart and the brain and the kidneys. But now Alzheimer's is just localized to the brain as far as we know.
That's what my dad and my grandfather both had the Alzheimer's. Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm expecting it any minute now.
There's probably a genetic component. Well, I don't know. Maybe the tobacco smoke will kill all the
no,
all the bad.
Grandpa smoked until he was 65. Lucky strikes, no filter, nothing.
And he
lived to 96, Doc.
Get out of town.
He did, 96. Died on Christmas Day.
Oh, my.
Yeah, he was an old German, in great shape. Used to walk behind, the horse with the plow kind of thing.
Well, it's certainly a benefit to stay physically and mentally active, and we know that will push dementia further back. We don't know how far back or what particular diseases it will affect the best, but we know that everybody dies with a little bit of Alzheimer's. The postmortem pathology reports on brains of normal people in their 90s who die. They still have a little bit of Alzheimer's showing up on the stains on the slides of their brain tissue. So this is probably affected not only by the genetics of it and the progression of the disease, depending on what your genes are and what your underlying physiology is, but also by activity or lack of activity and other things like brain injuries and small vessel disease. But now small vessel disease, vascular dementia, is different, and that's where you have a lot of little microscopic blood vessels in the brain that clot off, and the neurons, which are the brain cells in the brain, or the nerve cells in the brain, the gray matter is on the outside of the cerebrum, and then they have long tails, Ken, maybe an inch long, that go down into the brain and connect with other neurons and synapses, and kind of like a switchboard. So they go down to another node or node or connection area, and then the operator, she pulls the plug out and sticks it back in over here or there. So what happens is, although the nerve cells are still alive on the brain, the neurons, the tails of the neurons are dead, so they can't transmit anything. And so this is called vascular dementia, and this is more diffuse. It has to do with not only thought and emotions, but also with physical problems like imbalance and difficulty handling things and using your motor functions. So it's a little bit different. That's a pretty common one. Now, I probably see that more than I see Alzheimer's because of the patient population that I'm dealing with. But I would believe that the Alzheimer's Society says Alzheimer's is the most common of the dementias, followed closely by vascular dementia. But of course, they have a horse in that race. They want more donations, so right, they want you to, they want you to think that this is the big disease, which is fine. I mean, all the research is overlapping anyway.
Well, now
Lewy bodies, that's another third less common disease, and it's a cousin of Parkinson's, and you can have Parkinson and Parkinsonian dementia. And Parkinson's is when you get that 3 to 5 second pill rolling tremor of your hand, not the real fine tremor that most of us get as we get older, but and you can have the shuffling gait and the stiff walk and we call it the Parkinsonian mask, where your face, you can't really get your muscles moving much. And if you looked at Biden over the years, his facial expressions, especially before he got in the White House, were really flat. He didn't really he didn't really show his emotions. Most of us show emotions when we talk or speak or think or interact with other people, and he did not. And that's because of Parkinson's disease, which attacks that part of the brain that has to do with motor function and motor movement. And so that's what happened to him. And you can also have a problem with Parkinson's, where you start to walk and you can't stop. You keep going faster and faster till you fall down.
That could be a
And
problem.
you'll see that in some people. And you have cogwheeling, which is where if you take the patient's arm and you hold it in your hand, and then you take their forearm and you open it and close their arm, flex and extend it, you'll get a cogwheeling. You'll get a kind of effect. And does that make sense?
A little bit.
Okay, so it's kind of like a jerky movement of the muscles, even though the patient's not doing anything himself or herself. You're doing it, but the muscles are reacting to the brain's deterioration, and they're not moving smoothly, so they're kind of cogwheeling or jerky. And that's another thing that we see. That's Parkinson's, and then Lewy bodies are another type of protein that gets deposited in different parts of the brain. And then you have these less common neurodegenerative diseases, but we don't see much of those. Maybe they see more in New Zealand, where they have Jacob Creutzfeldt. It's kind of like mad cow disease. You remember that?
Oh, sure. Absolutely, yeah. For a long time.
That was from eating cow brains.
Yeah.
Why on earth would anybody eat brains? I don't know.
What's in the pipeline for cures these days as far as Alzheimer's and other brain diseases?
Well, we have treatment, but we really don't have anything to cure it yet. I think this is going to be one of those diseases that's going to require prevention rather than treatment, because once you have a certain amount of tissue death in the brain, it's hard to bring it back, just like it is in the lungs, where you have, and I don't mean to pick on you, but where you have deterioration of the lungs from smoking or from industrial exposure. And then you get emphysema and COPD, and you can't reverse it. Not now, not at this time in science.
Well, maybe medicine. AI will change all that.
Well, I think AI is going to change everything. I mean, it's already changing my life. I go and, instead of going and researching something now, like dementia, I just go to AI and say, hey, AI, give me the different types of dementia, the diagnostic criteria, and the treatment, and it pops it all up. And it's really
a useful tool. If you're not using AI, you don't be scared of it.
No, don't be scared of it. It's an encyclopedia that you have on your phone or in your computer, and it's quite fast. Different ones are a little bit faster than other ones, but it's even being used by some people. ChatGPT, the Pro ChatGPT, which costs an extra $20 a month. People are using it to solve their marital problems and relationship problems rather than going to a counselor.
No
Can you believe that?
Why not?
They ask it, and it's impartial. It's not going to take one side or the other, and it's going to tell you. It's going to analyze.
It's going to look at all the research that's out there on the subject.
Yeah, it's going to analyze what you do and give you an unbiased opinion as to what the problem is and how you can solve it. And I mean, that's a fantastic thing to have, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
It's only going to.
Yeah.
As the quantum computers come in, it's going to be so fast. It's going to connect the world in a way that we cannot even imagine right now. The quantum computers are going to be able to solve problems in a minute or two that would take traditional computers millions of years, Ken.
And it'll probably speed up, the creation of viruses, or rather the creation of some sort of shot to get rid of the virus if it shows up.
Yeah, and I think that this is that AI is going to be able to give us a tool that can quickly go through a lot of different therapeutic regimens and decide what works and look at the biochemical interaction of different kinds of treatments, both preventative and therapeutic, and it will help us to quickly identify new potential treatments and to put them into trials and see what's going on. It's really good. It's going to change. It already is changing everything. It's just unbelievable. And I don't know how much the warring countries like Ukraine and Russia are using it, but I'm sure that they're using it widely. And you know, Trump's threatened to cut off their intelligence feed from us.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but I don't think that Elon's done anything yet. I mean, I think a lot of this is just posturing for negotiations. You know, I mean, the guy's a businessman. And a lot of people don't understand that because they've never been in business. You know, most people have never run a business, Ken.
Oh, certainly not. No.
And one of my Canadian patients said he's changing his mind all the time. I don't know what he's up to. And I said, he's negotiating. You know, it's like selling a business or buying a business. You come in and you appraise it and you argue about it and you say, well, no, I won't give that, but I'll give this, and you give me that, or I won't give you this, or you give me this, I'll give you that. And, you know, politicians generally don't think that way. They're lawyers. They've studied political science, and they just don't have that same mindset and skill set. And you got to remember that the two worst investing professionals are lawyers and doctors. We can't figure out what to do. But it's gotten better over the years because now we've got all these money managers and big funds and all that you can go to and just plunk some money in there and every month.
AI is going to make us all rich anyway.
It's certainly going to change our lives. That's for sure.
This just in from Fox News, by the way. I don't know if you saw this yet. There's here an incident took place just after midnight, about a block away from the White House.
I did not. What happened?
It doesn't not giving any details. It just says no Secret Service personnel were injured. It's a developing story. So something happened. Somebody probably got caught with a gun near the White House. I'm just speculating now.
Well, probably some bum took a poop on the street.
I don't think the Secret Service reacts to that, do they?
Yeah. If it's stinky, they do.
Maybe they do. So we'll watch that for the next half hour here and see if anything else comes of that.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
So now, one question. I mean, how worried should I be now? Dad had Alzheimer's and Grandpa had Alzheimer's. I'm 66. How worried should I be, Doc? You're my doctor.
Can you remember my last name?
Hello? You're what?
Can you?
Yeah, I still know your last name. I know where your office is, and I can get there.
That's all that matters.
Okay,
you can find your way to the office and bring your insurance card. Then we will diagnose you as mentally fit.
Hey, I'm on Medicare, so have a ball, whatever you want.
Well, that's good. That's a good thing. Hopefully Trump and Doge won't cut into our Medicare too much. I don't think they're going to cut the benefits to the public, but I think they're going to
come after doctors?
After the doctors.
Really?
Yeah, they're going to start. They're going to cut us down.
That's terrible. They always hit you guys.
You know, we haven't had a significant raise in our Medicare reimbursement rates in, God, probably 15 years. Can you believe that? I mean,
that's a long time. We've had a lot of inflation since then.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, most doctors are making it fairly well because they're working for big clinics and hospitals and that sort of thing, where there's a lot of upcoding and, you know, not necessarily illegal stuff, but just a more astute way of billing and looking at the patients and the pathology that they have. So I'll get a lot of queries from the coding department at the hospital, and they want to know, is this acute kidney failure? Is this acute on chronic kidney failure? Is this chronic kidney failure? Well, you get paid more for acute on chronic than you do for chronic, and more for acute than you do for chronic kidney failure, because the assumption is that you have to do more work in the acute situation than you do in the chronic, which has already been under treatment, presumably outside of the hospital. So we get coding queries like that all the time.
Well, I hope he doesn't hit you too hard there, Doc. I hope he doesn't hit anybody on Medicare, but that's
Well, I don't know what's going to happen.
There's
we'll
waste
see.
everywhere. We all agree there's waste everywhere.
Oh yeah, I was talking with my son's mother. She's a bankruptcy attorney, and she's been working at the federal bankruptcy court over in Tampa for years and years. And she said she's a Democrat. And she said she's all for the this cost saving program that the Republicans are putting forth. She says half of the employees that work in the federal bankruptcy office don't do anything. They're reading books or knitting or going out to long lunches. Said you could get rid of half of them easily and still get all the work done. And this is coming from a Democrat.
Oh, yes, there's waste everywhere. I know. I'm positive.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Hey,
and then you got these sanctuaries.
We're getting some more on this story now.
Okay.
Our man who was shot by Secret Service agents. He was shot.
They shot him.
They shot him. Yeah. He was from.
Well, that'll teach him to poop on the street.
That's a little severe, but hey, you got your loss. He's from Indiana, apparently. No one else was hurt. Happened about a block away from the White House around midnight. So
he was armed.
Oh, they're saying he's an alleged suicidal individual. Might have been a death by suicide by cop kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, that's one way to go, but
yeah,
I guess if you do that, your insurance will pay.
Really?
Yeah, but I think most of the life insurance policies, if you commit suicide within 1 year of getting the policy, they won't pay.
That's true. Yeah, I think there is a delay there that you have to wait 2-3 years sometimes, I think.
Yeah, so we had all these Democratic mayors go up to the White House, or not the White House, up to the Capitol building, and they were testifying during the week. And Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston, she says that Boston is one of the safest cities in the country, in part because of their gun policies. I don't know if that's true. I think Boston's probably been a pretty safe city since the inception of the Republic. And even before that, the Bostonians have long been known to be liberals and to clamor for changes like the American Revolution. But I don't think they've ever been a big crime city. And so I'm not sure that the policies make a whole lot of difference. I think the population is what matters. And I think that if you have a population that's used to violence, well, you're going to have more violence, Ken.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
And you see this with the Canadians and the Americans. The Canadians are just not that violent, and they don't have as much violent crime per capita. But we are a little bit more rambunctious, and we're made up of a lot of left-hand turners, and we actually encourage our kids to stand up and fight. Whereas a lot of cultures, they encourage their kids to make peace. Make love, not war. Remember that?
Oh, sure. I was a little young for the 60s, but I do remember the slogans. Yeah.
Yeah, I took that to heart for a couple of decades.
Decades, okay.
But I'm not going to give you all the details. I don't
no.
want to get anybody's feelings hurt.
No names, please.
Yeah. No names. We shall remain nameless. So at any rate, we've got all these mayors going up there, and they're defending their policies, and they're trying to convince us that their cities are safe and great and all that. I don't know how many illegal aliens there are in Boston. I doubt they have that big of a number. I mean, who the hell wants to go live in the snow and the ice and in a small city like Boston? I mean, to me, it would be my last place to go if I were an illegal alien coming to the States. I'd want to go to California or New York City, where there's a heterogeneous population you could find people you fit in with. But I don't know about Boston. I mean, have you been to Boston?
I have never been to Boston. I've wanted to go, but I've never been there. Chicago Chicago has a big Hispanic population, so I can see why they were there testifying.
Yeah, and Chicago, that's a polyglot city, and they have all kinds of different subpopulations, German and Polish and Latinos and blacks, and they've got a little bit of everybody, and they're probably almost as diverse as New York City is.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just not quite
absolutely.
as big.
A lot of Irish there, And
Oh, yeah,
And there was a
Irish.
time in Chicago, if you walked in the wrong neighborhood, if you were German and you walked in the Italian neighborhood, you're going to get beat up just because you were in the wrong neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And they probably, if you're Irish, they probably should beat your ass.
all the cops are Irish.
Yeah, well, I know. And all the mafioso are Italian, so you can see there's a natural conflict there. Well, at any rate,
hey, look at the time. This show just flies by, Doc, every weekend.
I'm telling you, Guy, I don't know what we talked about, but it was fun.
Well, I hope you all out there were paying attention, because today's question deals, of course, with what happened earlier in the show. You ready to give away a mug?
I'm ready. And by the way, you need to send me last week's winner's name and address.
Oh, yeah, Mr. McGee.
Yeah, McGee, because I don't keep all that information. I know he's won in the past, but Ken, I'm getting a little demented. So
Oh, no, don't tell me that.
you got to help me out.
Okay, I'll send it to you again. I got 3 or 4, because he's won a lot. He's one of our regulars, and we love him for it.
Yep, we do.
Today's question, Doc, has to do with, we were talking about the brain early on in the show. So if you're paying attention, you heard us mention deja vu. Deja vu. We have all experienced deja vu. What causes it? It's a delay in something. I'll give you that much as a clue. So you fill in, you tell us what the delay is, and you'll win yourself a beautiful Dr. Bill Radio MD coffee mug. Ain't that right, Doc?
Woohoo.
The number to call to win is 813-282-8283. First caller will win with the correct answer. 813-282-8283 is the number. And again, the question, what is deja vu? What causes that? It's a delay in something. You figure that out and give the phone number a call, 813-282-8283, and you will be a winner if you're the first caller. Ain't that right?
We'll be right back
in just a couple of minutes.
Get your daily dose of Dennis Prager at PragerTopia.com. Hear the Happiness Hour, Celebrity Guest Day, Male, Ultimate Issues Hour, and Open Lines. PragerTopia.com.
With SRN News, I'm Michael Harrington in Washington. Brush fires on New York's Long Island, fanned by high winds, have picked up quickly. Those blazes were spewing thick gray smoke into the sky and closed a major highway yesterday. Governor Kathy Hochul has declared a state of emergency and says state agencies were responding to the fires around the Pine Barrens. That's a wooded area home to commuter towns east of New York City. Officials say 3 of the 4 fires had at least been contained. Facing spiking energy demand, U.S. states are pressing for ways to build new power plants faster as policymakers try to protect residents from higher electric bills and keep their economies on track. Some states are dangling financial incentives or overhauling regulatory structures. The spike in demand for electricity is driven in large part by the artificial intelligence race as tech companies feed their energy-hungry data centers. This is SRN News.
Dr. Bill for Bay Area Medical, located at 6399 38th Avenue North in St. Pete, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. Full-service clinic with x-ray, heart imaging, ultrasound, stress testing, and minor surgery. We provide quality health care in a warm and friendly atmosphere. We are multilingual, well-trained, and certified. Most American insurance and new patients accepted. Bay Area Medical, home of Can Care, 727-384-6411. 727-384-6411.
Dr. Bill here. With social distancing and sheltering in place, telemedicine is here. Bay Area Medical Home of Can Care Clinic offers telemedicine for new and established patients. You can see me without an in-office visit. Schedule an appointment at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. When it's time for your appointment, type this web address into your cell phone or computer web browser, doxy.me/Bay Area Med. A cell phone works well and is all you really need. For computers, you need a web camera and speakers. We'll give you this address when you call for your appointment. We accept most insurances and travel insurances. Canadians and visitors, please call your travel insurance company for an authorization number prior to the visit. Copays and deductibles apply. Self-pay rates are available. Just ask. We accept credit cards, PayPal, and Stripe. 727-384-6411. 727-384-6411.
Dr. Bill here. My friends at St. Pete MRI and Sleep Diagnostics are your best choice for state-of-the-art MRI, CT, and sleep studies. Quality unsurpassed. 25 years experience makes St. Pete MRI my go-to imaging center. Self-pay rates are competitive and out-of-pocket cost a fraction of a hospital. Conveniently accessible from both sides of the bay at 750 94th Avenue North, St. Pete, near the Gandy. 727-577-2220. 727-577-2220.
As an independent registered investment advisor, Simple Path has the freedom to offer unbiased advice without the potential conflicts of large broker-dealers. Visit simplepathretirement.com.
For today, partly sunny, breezy, and pleasant with a high of 79. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm, mainly later, low 68. Tomorrow, a couple of morning showers and a thunderstorm, otherwise breezy with clouds yielding to some sun with a high of 72. Get your weather news when and how you want it wherever you are. Download our free app or visit AccuWeather.com. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Caitlin Lawrence for AM 860, The Answer.
And we're back. This is Dr. Bill. Got Ken by my side. We're doing a show, a little more than halfway through it. Hope everybody got a cup of coffee and had a nice break there. Looks like the president has threatened or has supposedly halted intelligence to the Ukraine, Ken. And, you know, it's going to affect more than the military there. It also gives them information on their infrastructure. It also gives them advanced warning as to when Russia is launching drones or missiles, and so they can get their defense net up and working. So it's going to have various effects on their conduct during the war, as well as their at-home day-to-day activities. And so, you know, we've supplied the Patriot missiles to help them, and if we stop that and we stop intelligence, they're going to have a hard time. But I think the bottom line is we want the Europeans and the Canadians to step up, Ken. I mean, it's you know, it's not that big of a deal. They're not even meeting the 2% defense funding that was set by NATO, the European countries. They have not been meeting that, Ken. And now we're saying, look, we want more than 2%. We want you to kick in 4 or 5%. And I think now they're getting the message that we ain't going to keep wiping their behinds. You know, they're going to have to do it themselves.
Time to grow up.
Yeah. And, you know, and I got into it with one of my Canadian patients, and he said, well, you know, we're a small country and you're a big country, so you should pay more. And I said, you know, that's apples and oranges. Let's look at apples and apples. If I make $100,000 and I'm paying 15% for defense, and you make $100,000 and you're paying 2% for defense, where's the equity in that? You know, it's the individuals that have to realize that they got to give more for that. And you say, well, what about our social programs? Well, I mean, come on, you can't give everybody everything. And all the government workers in Canada, hell, they all retire by the time they're 60, 55, 60.
With a nice pension, I imagine.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, they're not going to get wealthy, but it certainly gives a lot of them enough money to come down to Florida in the winter.
Germany has a very large economy, so does France. I mean, these are not broke countries at all.
No, and well, I mean, Canada's not doing well, but they've mismanaged things so badly over the decades. But you know, the French and the Germans, they have big economies, and they can afford to kick in more. Great Britain. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for these countries to do more. And now Poland is doing more, and I think Romania has stepped up, and they're doing more too. So if they can do it, why can't the other countries in Europe?
Just takes political will, that's all.
Yeah. I mean, you have to decide what your priorities are now. If you want to live under the boot of the Russians, well, you know, don't invest in armaments.
That's right.
It's real simple. Don't have an army. But by the way, the European defense stocks have gone up almost 60-70% in the past year. They've gone up 20 or 30% just since the beginning of this year.
Well,
because
that's good.
Yeah, because we're saying no, and so the Russians or the Germans and the British and the French and these different companies, they're saying, "Oh crap, we got to step up here," and so they're ordering more equipment and supplies, and that means everything from munitions to jet engines to replacement parts to tanks to whatever it is that you need on the battlefield. And remember that an army travels on its stomach, so you need not only weaponry and materials, manpower and materials and supplies, you also need to feed these people.
Absolutely.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah, the
That's
logistics involved in putting an army on a field is incredible.
It's incredible. You think about feeding an army, like during World War I or II, feeding those armies. They had mega bakeries and slaughterhouses, and they were pumping out millions of loaves of bread a day to feed these guys.
Well, you got to admit, war is good for the economy.
As long as I'm not in it.
Well, yeah.
As long as I don't get shot, that's fine with me.
I think you're a little old. I think you're a little old for the draft there, Doc.
Yeah, I do too. And people say, well, what if it was your son that got killed in the war? And I'm like, well, it depends on the war and depends on the cause. And we all take risk in life, and that's the way it is. People say, my sisters are like, oh, war is terrible. If it wasn't for war, we would not be here. We would not have survived as a species. We wouldn't be here as a nation. We went to Dad several times in the 1760s and 70s and said, look, we're happy to pay our fair share of the rent, but you got to give us a say in household affairs. And King George said, no, you're not old enough. You don't have the experience. Well, finally, we said, to hell with you, and did what most teenagers did and started swinging and got out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's called war.
Yeah.
I don't know there's nothing else you can call it. And I think a lot of us do that with our fathers. A lot of guys have a physical break with their dads as they're growing up, and then you get back together later.
Once you wise up,
yeah, and once the old man calms down and realizes that he's not able to control you, and I think that's part of being a good parent is letting go and not putting up a big stink, even if the kids make mistakes. You can give them advice, but you can't force them to do what you want them to do. You can't tell an 18-year-old boy what to do.
You can try, but it ain't going to work.
Wants.
That's right.
So you try to influence them properly and the best way you know how, but nothing's easy in life.
Doc,
it takes some struggle.
I'm calling the contest. Nobody called in. Nobody was paying attention when we were talking about this earlier, apparently. Not a correct answer. Not a correct answer in the bunch. So I'm calling it. And deja vu, Doc, is, from what you said, was a kind of a time delay in the brain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Between the limbic system and the frontal and the cerebrum.
So you think you're doing it for the second time when you haven't done it yet once at all. So there you go. That's the answer to today's question. Thanks for those who tried, but next week, pay closer attention. That's all I can tell you.
So
I get the bug this week. So.
Yeah, well, we'll get them next week.
Yeah, right.
That was a tough question, I got to admit. I was wondering what the answer was.
I told you. Maybe I made the question too tough, huh? Okay.
I think so. Any rate, so the Swedes are rethinking their ultra green philosophy and their eco philosophy. So I think that there's probably a little pullback on all of that, and they're looking at the integrity and the climate sciences and making sure that people aren't making up stuff, because researchers do that, Ken. They have a bias. They have a goal. A lot of them. They want to see their product accepted, and whether it's penicillin or getting rid of carbon fuel and going to solar or whatever. I think that's
Everybody has an agenda. That's right.
That's an inherent thing, and that's why you have to have tightly designed and controlled studies, especially in medicines. Otherwise, people get hurt.
Yes, and and if you come up with some new theory somewhere, other scientists will test the heck out of it to try and prove you wrong.
Yeah, and I mean it's like the sea levels rising. Oh, come on. Have you seen it go? I mean, we live on the water. You live on the water. You drive over the bridge.
I haven't seen any detectable rise in the sea level here.
No, I mean, like what, quarter of an inch, big deal. That's. But
well, I guess there was a time in the history of our planet when Florida was completely underwater. I guess that's when we didn't have any ice at all anywhere. But I don't think the ice is going to be melting anytime soon.
Yeah, and some researcher in Sweden went to Samoa and he found an abandoned house and he said, "Oh, this was from the rising sea levels and the climate change." And so another Swedish journalist went down there and tracked down the family, and they left because of an earthquake in 2009. And I don't know, maybe we're impacting the tectonic plates, but I had a T-shirt back in the 70s and 80s that said, "Stop plate tectonics." Good luck with that, baby.
Yeah, no kidding. Man,
So,
would the planet laugh at you if you tried to stop that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's got to be a pullback and a reassessment of a lot of the nonsense that we hear and see that is held out as research. And people say, well, look, there's more hurricanes and they're more severe now than they ever were. And as I told you, last year, I went and researched at the National Hurricane Center, which is a branch of NOAA. And I went and looked at that, and guess what? They've kept records since 1850 of every major hurricane that's hit the coast of the United States. And you know how much difference there is from decade to decade?
How much?
Not much, almost nil.
Yeah.
And one of my friends said, "Yeah, but our hurricanes are worse." I said, "Well, first of all, they tracked them, and when they were able to measure the wind speed, they could categorize it as a 3 or a 4 or a 5, and there's not a whole lot of difference. Plus, remember, if a hurricane hit Key West in 1850, who the hell knew? There was nobody there. There was an old fort, and I mean, I'm sure they did report some of what happened, but it's just
But there was no Margaritaville yet, right?
No, there was no Margaritaville. Yeah, I don't know. It's a funny world, and we have to be careful not to get too hysterical and take everything we read as truth, and especially in this day of so much dissemination of mass media over the social media, and you don't know what's what. I mean, I had one guy come in, a Canadian guy, and he wanted me to prescribe him ivermectin, which was the anti-worm medicine for animals that a lot of people during the pandemic thought was going to prevent or slow down the coronavirus, the COVID virus. And of course, there was no data to prove that. And I looked at the data, and I even reported on it here. And there's just no data to show it does anything. And I said, "What do you want that for?" And he said, "Oh, in case I get sick, or to keep from getting sick." I said, "What do you got, worms? What? Are you having some problems with your tapeworm growing too big, or what?" And I said, "No, I'm not going to give you ivermectin." And he said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Because it doesn't do anything." And he said, I said, "Where'd you find this out? Where'd you read this?" He said, "Oh, a bunch of my friends told me."
Aha.
I mean, when our friends research data authorities, and where do they get their info from? From Google. Somebody else
from
who
Google.
Got it from some. Yeah, I mean, it's a grapevine. It's silly,
Yeah.
Did you ever play telephone when you were a kid?
Sure, absolutely.
So I don't know if everybody knows about that. I'm sure most of the audience does, because they're in our age group. I don't know if the kids play it anymore, but
Probably not.
we would sit in a circle with 8 or 10 different kids, and the first person would whisper a phrase or a sentence into the second kid's ear, and then he'd pass it on. And so what you said at the beginning and what actually came back around with the last person who said what he heard,
were completely
That's right.
different and unrelated. So, you got to be careful. And with social media, it's even more rampant. It's even easier to get that effect and push that out there.
And a lot of that's intentional too. So,
yep.
They come up with a bogus story and just put it out there, and all of a sudden it's fact.
So there's a
way to
North
live.
Korean defector working in Ukraine now, and he's helping the Ukrainians talk to the North Korean soldiers who have been captured, and also distributing leaflets trying to get them to lay down their arms and surrender. And so he, of course, growing up in North Korea, knows a lot of little nuances of the language, and the dialect, of course, in North Korea is different than South Korea, because over the past 70, 80 years, they haven't had any real interaction. And so, as you know, languages tend to evolve and change. And a lot of words that we use nowadays, we didn't even have in 1950 and 60. And so he's going in and helping the Ukrainians communicate with these guys. His name is Seungmin Lee. So that's my wife's last name is Lee Yi. So that's like Smith or Jones.
I'm surprised they put his name out there. His family's in a lot of danger back home in North Korea.
Oh, that's long gone. His sister got out before he did, and he got his family out. But I don't even know if he's married anymore.
All right, well, wish him the best. Hope he saves some guys' lives over there. Have them come on over to our side.
And so he's an Ivy League graduate, and he speaks fluent English, and I guess he's probably learning some Ukrainian or Russian too. As you know, North Korea shares a border with Russia.
Yeah.
So they have had a lot of interaction with the Russians over the decades, and actually part of northeastern China was controlled by the Russians for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so Harbin, Harbin, which is the city in Manchuria in the northeast, which is where the International Ice Show is every winter, it's actually a Russian name. And they have, onion dome buildings and everything from when the Russians occupied that area. So there's been a lot of interaction between the Russians and the Koreans over the eons. Remember, the Manchurians and Koreans are basically the same bloodline, and different empires have been able to control different parts of that region over the centuries. And there was actually a pretty big Korean empire there that had a big chunk of Manchuria at one time.
Japanese had a big chunk of Manchuria at one time. They took
Yep.
it. They took it by force, but they had it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
I mean,
changed
yeah,
hands a
and
couple of times. Yeah.
The Chinese still have it now.
Thought the Russians kind of grabbed a piece of that at the end of the war, but maybe they gave it back.
Well, they need more real estate, Ken. They're a small
It's
country.
just not big enough. That's
They
right.
got to spread out a little bit more. Like, what are you going to do with why do you want more frozen tundra, for God's sakes?
Just more problems. Why would you want it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a bigger area you have to defend.
Exactly.
And
But
a bigger,
the people there probably don't want you there anyway.
well, they probably don't even know you are there. I mean, if you live in Vladivostok on the east coast of Russia, you probably have never been to Moscow or any of the cities on the other side of the Urals.
Most likely, right.
I mean, it would be like traveling for us to go from here to China. It's a long hike across Russia. They span, what, 10 or 12 time zones?
Oh, at least, I would think. Yeah.
I mean, you probably cross the international date line somewhere. I don't know.
Now, I can see why Russia would want Ukraine. I mean, a lot of minerals there, and they are more associated with Ukraine throughout history, but...
And they've wanted Ukraine off and on for eons because the Ukrainians were the breadbasket of Europe, and they also had all these natural resources and coal and this and that. And Ukraine's a pretty good-sized country.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's nowhere near the size of Russia or the United States or China or Brazil. But
it's got the Black Sea. It's got a lot of things Russia would like.
Yeah, and Greenland has a lot of things we'd like. I'd like to get a hold of that. I wonder if we could just go in and take it.
I'm sure no one would notice.
I don't think anybody would. I mean, the Danish, they're like, no, you can't have it. Well, what are you doing with it? And what, they got a population of 12,000
I think that's it, yeah.
Eskimos.
Right, and it's huge. It's a huge piece of property.
It's huge. I mean, there's probably bases that are on the northern part of the island that have been established by Russia, the United States, China, and various countries, and nobody even knows they're there.
I wouldn't doubt it a bit, yeah. So. Well, we got about 5 minutes left, Doc. What do you got? What else we got today?
Well, what else would you like to know about?
I would like to know why we haven't given up on this time change thing. That's what I want to know.
Because it's a 50-50 split.
Well,
And
can't we talk somebody into it from the other side? Let's get rid of it.
I think it's like a 52-48 split. Elon Musk sent out a questionnaire, and he got over 1 million responses back in a hurry. And it was like 52 want to get rid of daylight savings, 48% want to save it. And so the president, he said, look, it's a 50-50 deal. I mean, that's not worth debating. Now, if it gets to be, 70-30, then you got a significant piece of the population that wants it changed. But right now, there's just not that. For Floridians, it's tougher than for the middle of the country. You know that.
Why is that? Why is it tougher down here? It's
Well,
always been
because
tough for
we
me.
are at the leading edge of the sunrise, and it affects and we have more sunshine than most states do, since we're the most southern state.
Right.
And so these all play into our circadian rhythms, our day-night cycles, and sleep patterns and all that. And it's very hard for people to adjust when those are disrupted. Takes weeks, months. I mean, I'm still getting over the fall change. Now we got another one coming.
Hey,
it did come. It happened last night, I think.
Yes. I've heard stories about people having heart attacks on like the first Monday after a time change because it's so stressful.
That's a good thing for me.
Okay, well.
That helps my business.
All right. That's why I brought it up, Doc. If you're having a heart attack tomorrow morning, make sure you call Doc Handelman.
There you go.
Then call the ambulance.
So with the tariffs coming on the Canadian and Mexican imports, we're going to have problems. Our cars are going to go up in price unless we make the different parts back here, and I think we'll have to do that. Now, this is very upsetting. Beer, whiskey, and tequila, the prices are going up.
Hey. Don't go with the tequila. I could go without the tequila and the whiskey, but the beer, really?
Well, it's actually just the Mexican beer.
Okay. So it's all right. Because Bud is still made here, and all those are still made here.
I mean, if you love Molson, which is a Canadian beer, then you're in deep doo-doo. But
probably Heineken too.
We got plenty of beer, Ken. We can afford to.
Right. Have yourself a Miller Lite.
And supposedly we import a third of our lumber for construction from Canada. But we've got so much lumber here. I mean, we can make that up. And in addition, you know what? I don't think we should be building houses out of wood anymore, especially with the problems like they had out in L.A. Look at all those homes that burnt down. If they'd been poured concrete, they wouldn't have burnt down.
I was just reading last night about how affordable 3D poured concrete it is, really. It's like $150,000 for a 2,000 square foot home.
It's getting cheaper and cheaper.
Yes, it is. And it's solid. It ain't going nowhere in a hurricane.
No. It might not stand up to an earthquake, but it'll certainly stand up to fires and hurricanes.
That's right. Exactly. So I think we're going to see more 3D homes built. Yeah. It doesn't take any labor. There's no labor.
No, there's no labor.
All the labor costs. That's great. We got less than a minute now, Doc. So what else we got here to talk about next?
Okay, well, I want you to know maple syrup prices will go up. I'm sure that'll hurt everybody.
Well, I'll live.
We'll get over it.
It's all right, exactly.
At any rate, I'm Dr. Bill. I'm at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. We're at 6399 38th Avenue, North St. Pete, Florida. You come see us, or if you don't want to come over, you just give us a phone call and we'll set you up for a telemedicine visit. If you want to see my pretty face, we'll do it online.
There you go.
How about that?
And I love the telemedicines. They're so convenient.
Yeah.
They really are. Probably for you, too.
Yeah,
And the whole staff
well,
probably
I'm
likes
sure
it.
the federal government's going to step on that shortly here.
Say bye, Doc.
Bye, Doc. We'll see you next week, everybody.